workshop in English. We are delighted to have Lisa Richardson, a math teacher in the US, present today. She will focus on how to incorporate Ozobots into the high school math classroom, including projects for angles, measurement, and even quadratics. She will provide several activities for you to use in your classroom or to adapt as you wish. Lisa already shared with our community some awesome activities that we have translated into French for you on the Roteco website.
Thank you for coming. I know we're being recorded. Ozobot, I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with it. I came across it about 5 or 6 years ago. I just ended up in a presentation for it. And most Ozobot stuff is geared for lower level and elementary. So even if you go to their website, most of the lessons are geared towards younger learners. And so I wanted to bring it into my high schoolers. And I luckily have a wonderful administration who just kind of is like, okay, you be you. And I brought them in because the first thing I saw is that with Ozobots, it is following directions and order of operations. So right there, that's something critical in any math level, anywhere. I also feel like Ozobots are a wonderful motivator for struggling learners or learners that don't want to. Sometimes you'll have kids finish work just so they can play with it. And I know that that might not be a particular like standard in learning, but let's face it, we need all the motivation we can get, especially when it comes to high schoolers. So get started here. Let me make sure I can move my PowerPoint. This is just our technical, you know, we always have to have the reasons. CS is important in math, and I'm going to make this PowerPoint available to you, as well as the Ozobot classroom lessons for all my lessons. If y'all want anything in an editable copy, you may reach out to me. I will send you the Word document so you can translate it, do whatever you need to do with it. I'm fine with that. You don't have to have my permission. I have a blog where I share everything, so you can get most of the material off of there, as well as other math things, not just Ozobot. So this is the Ozobot Evo that they are currently selling. Before that, they had one called the Bit, which is what I had in my classroom for a really long time. Both of them are completely wonderful. I feel like the Bit, it was a little bit more durable for when they rolled off of a desk and went crawling out into the hallway. I used both of them. They're both wonderful. Evo does a lot more as far as the coding angle and the technology angle. So they are a little bit more expensive too, but I always recommend to anybody that wants to try Ozobots is reach out to other grade levels, others. I'm not sure how it works in other countries. Like we have high school, middle school, lower school. We can reach out to other schools in our district and say, hey, do y'all have a set of Ozobots laying around? And try and find them. And you honestly, as a teacher, I ask for school supplies for Christmas. You could get to Ozobots and do stations even if you needed to. And I'm actually going to show you resources that you don't actually need an Ozobot for if you have a laptop or a computer. I'm also going to show you that you can use Ozobot without a computer, which is one of my favorite things. You need 4 markers and a piece of paper in an Ozobot, and you can have valuable lessons, even major grades. So this is showing you that we have 2 things, with and without screens. My original use was simply color coding. That's still how I do a lot of it, because to me, that's really important with students, is being accurate, having your order of operations correctly, getting those hands-on experiences. And last year, it was so incredibly valuable. At the end of the lessons, me and the students were all crying just to be able to get hands-on and do stuff again online. So color codes, this is my personal favorite. You only need 4 markers, black, blue, green, and red, and you don't have to use the Ozobot markers. And students just simply make the color codes of that will create and have Ozobot do stuff. So what I generally do is, sorry, I think I'm out of my order of presenting, so I apologize. So Ozobot has a lot of classroom activities. There is a free account online. I highly recommend it. You can search almost anything on there. To my knowledge, it's only in English, and I'm not sure about other. Honestly, I only speak English, so that's what I'm sure of. But any of these activities, like mine, for sure, you can translate into any language. I'm sure you can with Ozobot as well. They definitely want to share and get out there and have you guys, you know, play around. These are the like introductory lessons, which I think are really important to give with students. I usually just show a little introductory video, which I have provided for y'all in this PowerPoint. I show a little introductory video to kind of rope them in, and I just kind of let them play the first day. I think it's really important that they get to kind of experience it, know how their color codes need to be, how wide their lines need to be. It's all about following instructions. And I can't imagine that there's a teacher out there that does not want their student to follow instructions and do it accurately. So these are my 3 videos. These are embedded into my PowerPoint. I'm going to give these all to you guys as well. And what I think, these are the things that I think are most important when we show our kids is this is a little 1-minute intro. It is on YouTube. Then this one is just a, you probably would want to watch it ahead of time, but it's just kind of showing them what Evo does, how to do color codes. And the first time I ever introduced it, I would just do it with color coding, just letting them draw, letting them get hands-on, touch the robot, play with it. And one of the situations that I came across a lot is, well, my kids aren't mature enough for this. My kids can't handle this. I don't think that they would take good care of it. I'm here to tell you, if you give them something like this to work with, they will. I have a pretty rough batch of students. I have a tough group, and they have always been really wonderful with my robotics because they want to do it and they're motivated to do it. And then always showing them how to calibrate is very, very important. So I'm not sure if y'all are familiar. I was going to show y'all the introductory video to Evo. Do y'all need to see it, or would y'all like to see it? Y'all can just give me a nod if you'd like to see it, if you aren't familiar at all, and I'll be happy to show you. If you are, then we can kind of move on to the lesson.
Does anyone have a preference? Urs, I'll ask you, would you like to see the video? I got a thumbs up, so let's go for it. If that's all right,
okay, let me show them that first video, and I'm going to try and see if it, okay, and for you, it's not important. All right, this one's just about a minute, so hopefully. Are y'all getting the sound?
No, and okay, I've got the view says no, we can see it later. Actually, no, we're not getting the sound. It can be just, I will just say it's in the view options to share sound, but if you can put the link, and or later if we send out the slides to make sure that
it'll all be in there.
Okay.
It'll all be in there.
I guess we'll skip the slides for now, but usually on Zoom we have to share with the view options up top to put the sound
Yeah,
on.
I knew it was different. I'm never sure. It's been a while since I've done a Zoom meeting. So anyway, what I just basically do is I kind of show them like, this is what it is, this is what you're gonna see, and just kind of get them a little bit interested in it, show them the different things they can do. As you saw, just kind of slip through, show them we can do it online, we can do it by hand, okay? The link is going to be provided in the PowerPoint for y'all. So everything I have is going to be, I actually have the links to the videos in the PowerPoint, like in the notes section. So I have all this for you. I'm giving you this whole PowerPoint. Is that okay, Katerina?
It's okay. It's okay.
Okay, wonderful.
Yes, it's okay.
Yeah, I have all these linked, and I have them all in the notes section for you as well. And I'm giving this all to you. And of course, you can always reach out to me if you have any questions. If you find better videos, let me know. My last intro video was a lot of fun, but it was all the old model instead of the new model. So I tried to update everything for y'all with the most current technology that they have. If y'all have any questions. Why it's doing that? It was like goes. Okay, so what is Ozobot? I had the basic training lesson in here. So I always do 2 days, my first time I introduce Ozobots. I give them the basic training lesson. I print page 8 for all. And I know that some of this have changed in their new classroom. So I have put this older version of the lesson in the shared drive for y'all. I'm going to give y'all all the links to everything so y'all can use it. And I just basically print it up and allow them plenty of time to play, explore, try and figure it out. Like up here, I encourage them. Like, I love watching kids get out their phones and record it and share it on social media and show what we're doing. And just basically have them practice how to code, how to get the robot to do what they want to do. There are coding sheets provided right up here. If you ever get a set, or if not, you can print them online. They can access them online, but I think it's better to have the hard copy in front of them because I also want to keep them off their phones and get them hands-on. So that just shows them that the Ozobots, it shows them how to spin, how to speed up, how to slow down, just using markers and paper. So they can go along, and it's really a lot of fun. Last year, I had my kids getting really into it. This kid is like taking a video going, I'm making my guy drift right here. And he was like making him zoom and speed up. These are high schoolers, and they're getting all into it. And the whole thing is it's logic and it's order of operations. And I introduced that to them. Some of them will make that connection because the super slow snail mode is the opposite of turbo mode. So if you put it wrong, then you're not going to get the result you want. And it's just a very simple technique, but it makes that connection. And then what I do is I print the practice page and I give them plenty of paper to do. And then day 2, every student has to complete a couple of puzzle activities. You can get plenty of logic activities offline. Teachers have some for just a couple of bucks. And I make all the students just do like 3 of the logic things to see if they can get the desired effect out of their Ozobot. And I have some teacher tips down here for y'all. You have to make sure that they're thick enough for the Ozobot to read. They have to be about 1/4 of an inch. Ozobot, a lot of their activities have guides on them and everything like that. So it just makes it really good. This is just the introductory thing. I know 2 days might seem like a lot. I usually do this the first week of school. So when kids are like changing periods and stuff like that. And it's just to kind of introduce them, give them a step up, because I do projects with it later in the year. So this is another hands-on one I had with high school math. We do quadratics. And what I do is they have to have their rough draft available. And then they have all these prerequisites that they have to do. And it's all showing the attributes of a quadratic, which is key to solving a quadratic, transforming, doing all that kind of stuff. So I generally give them a whole day. I give them an entire piece of poster paper. The hardest part really is trying to help them scale it, because you don't want it just on a scale of 1s. You want them to stretch that out as much as possible. This is a major grade for us. There is a lot of like standards here that they are necessary in our state for our test, and it's just a different type of major grade than a test, where they're still covering very important, very critical information, very important vocabulary, and then they do it as well. I have
Lisa, can I just, I'm sorry to interrupt you. It's completely, it's fascinating. Can I just ask, when you're speaking into the corner, we catch your voice, but when you go straight onto the screen, we lose it a little bit, just for your microphone and picking up.
How is it right here? Is this okay?
No, a little bit over to the side when you're talking on the side.
Let me throw in my headphones. How's that?
Okay, sorry to interrupt you. I just thought it's really fascinating, but we sometimes are cutting out
better
a little bit. Try it now.
Okay, now I can't hear you. Hang on. Okay.
We can hear you. Can you hear us?
Are y'all hearing me?
I'm hearing you. Yes.
Okay, I can't hear y'all though.
Okay.
That's weird.
I suspect it has to do with where you go with your microphone. You might have to change.
Okay, got it now. Y'all can hear me better now?
Yes, and perfectly.
All right, wonderful. I'm so sorry about that. Thank you.
No, and I'm sorry to interrupt you. I just thought it's important. It would be nice to catch. Thank you. This is very interesting.
So you're going to practice. I have the kids, you have to practice a lot, because coding is not easy for the students, and it will get kind of accurate. If you see down here, I have one of my solution squares for them, where they had to like actually tape over, and they do lose points for that, because the whole point is you practice enough before you do it. Again, they don't need a computer for this. They can do it all completely online with thing. And it's really great to see them. I actually put them out in the workroom one year and had teachers come by and leave notes for them. And I had several kids take the sticky notes to put in their books. So a great motivator. And my students are not generally students that are top of the school. They are generally struggling. Some of them are a lot of behavior problems. So this type of feedback and this type of engagement is always really wonderful to see. And then to have, teachers and stuff give them that positive reinforcement is really nice. So this activity is provided to y'all. And I do have this one video here. Unfortunately, we can't do sound, but I will go ahead and play it for y'all so y'all can see it. And basically it's my students, actually, this is a completed project that was a 100. And in the video, they explain everything that it's doing, why it's doing it, what the attributes of the quadratic were, and everything like that. And it was just a well done project that nailed it. And that's just kind of what the end result is with it. It's just a different way to do something that we normally do. You could have them do 2 of them where they're doing transformations and all that kind of stuff. So there's quite a different things that you can do. And again, this is all provided to you in the PowerPoint. The other thing I do every year, and this is another just hands-on without any technology, is the geometry task cards. I do a geometry unit, so it's lots of vocabulary. And I have a set of task cards, and you only have to make 1 for the class, and they come up and they have to complete 4 challenges for their grade that day. And they get to pick, and it'll have things in there like, create a circle with a diameter of 10 centimeters. Do 2 acute angles, and then it'll tell them also what codes to include. Make your Ozobot flash green, make him flash red. So I'm getting the computer science angle in there as well as coding, and then doing the geometry vocabulary review. I have like the 1 centimeter paper I give them so that they don't have to do a lot of measuring, but it always ends up really well to review vocabulary instead of just flashcards or cutting and pasting or a memory game. This again, I've taken a snapshot from one of the lesson pages in the Ozobot library to show you guys that they give you all of this, make it really detailed. And I'm not sure what standards y'all use, but we do standards like for our state, and as well as like NCTM and ISTE standards, which are like nationwide standards. And I'm not sure if any of those translate, but we have a lot of standards in there too to help you show where your lesson fits into that. If you have administration that's like, why are these kids playing with markers? And it's really all about, we have something called math processing standards, which a lot of this stuff fits into. And it's just about a unique way to review and challenge students. Thank you. Our ISTE standards worldwide, Melissa?
I mean, typically, yes, but of course, Switzerland, I mean, ISTE is quite well known, but in Switzerland, there is, Switzerland has its own curriculum that is different between the French and the German side, typically, but just by some words. So Switzerland has its own standards, and I don't know to that answer how much of ISTE is incorporated into the Swiss standards.
But it does give you, hopefully you can find the standards you need to, and I want to say the word justify, which I don't think is correct, but to justify the lesson you're giving. And I always just get a lot of engagement, and I have every kid doing the work on these days, every single kid. And again, I love it when they get out their cell phones and they share it and they get enthusiastic about it. And it's not just a simple review. And that's one of my favorite things. On to Ozoblockly. I actually used Ozoblockly during quarantine when we couldn't go out. They have a wonderful program I was going to show you online in just a second. But right here is the Blockly challenges. And what I did is I sent the kids there, and they have one called Shape Tracer. So I'm going to stop so this you don't even need an Ozobot for. This one is a completely, they have some that are completely online only. So I'm going to see which one it is. Excuse me. Oh, here's my Google Doc trying to translate where everybody was talking about when they were saying hello. So right here, this one is called Shape Tracer. And can y'all still see my screen where it's showing the Ozobot page? Okay. Yes. This is the one I did when we were on virtual completely. On this one, it's a practicing coding. And so you actually want to do this challenge right here. You want to get Ozobot from here to here, and you want him to flash green the whole time. So you have to make sure that first you set his light color to green. And this one's all about, just coding and some block coding right here. And then you want him to move, and you want him to go 10 steps, because each graph is a step. So this is wonderful for lower levels and higher levels, because again, it's all about following instructions. You're doing some basic math, basic coding, doing all this kind of stuff. And then you hit run and you see if your Ozobot does it right. And so during virtual learning, I had my students and told them they had to complete like 4 levels, and that was their job for the day. And they really enjoyed having something different. They really enjoyed seeing that tangible little bot that they had in their hand translate onto the screen. And it does get very high level. It goes into creating loops and all kinds of stuff and doing things like this. And I highly recommend any instructor even go and kind of play with this program, because it's a lot of fun. I'm not sure if it's translated into other languages, but it's pretty straightforward. And I think there might just be minimal amount of words you have to translate. With coding, I'm not familiar other than the basic side of coding. But this one is really wonderful. You can also then load the program onto your Ozobot. So you could actually have that Ozobot in front of you and see him enact the program as well. The big key that you have to do in order to load the program onto your Ozobot is make sure your screen brightness is on the max screen brightness. That's a big key you have to have, because these are light sensitive. So in your classroom, you want to make sure your classroom is very lit up. You don't want to be having any like lights covered or anything like that. It needs that bright light in order to read the color codes clearly. And we have come across, we used to have a light that was out at the corner of the room, and those students' Ozobot would not work as well. They would have to move until we got the light replaced. So we did notice that, because they are light and color coded. But this is a wonderful program. There are several of them. This one gets a little more technical. This one does too. And then you even have the simulator that you get your Ozobot to simulate the lessons, because they don't have the Ozobot at home in virtual learning, or let's say your school doesn't have the Ozobot, you have it virtually right here. And then hopefully you can get a couple of them to put in their hands later on in the year. So it's a wonderful tool. It's easy. And I love that you do not have to have technology, or you don't even have to have an Ozobot, and you can still get that valuable learning in. So I just wanted to share that with y'all, because I think that that's a wonderful thing that they have on their site. I noticed this morning when I went to it, this did not come up in the pop-up. I don't know why. It just was there 2 days ago, but I have put the link in my PowerPoint for y'all. And if you click on this, it'll take you to that website. So I tried to make everything accessible for you with a click in your web browser. So this is one that I did virtually. This is one where you're going to be measuring angles. You are going to be, and you can change it to be what you need. Of course, we had a big toilet paper shortage during the pandemic. And I did Ozobots Mad Dash for toilet paper kind of as a cheeky thing, but the students have to do the measurements of the distance. They have to measure the angles and be able to get to all the different places. So we were searching for toilet paper everywhere. And then we stopped by Whataburger, which is a really popular restaurant in Texas, just kind of, and then they had to get back home. So I have a couple of lessons like this. I have another one that's like Hermione's hair Jinks, where she's looking for stuff for her hair if you choose not to do something related to. And then they had to avoid the little virus spots as well. So there was a lot of measurement going on here. And I'm not sure if y'all teach lower level, or if y'all teach intermediate, or y'all teach high school. My students need practice measuring every day. It is a life skill that they will need beyond anything, even to measure their phone screens to order cases. And so measurement was really, really important here. And then if they measure in centimeters, they have to convert to millimeters. So you're covering a lot of different standards there. And I know that a lot of times teachers at my level will be like, well, that's so elementary, they should know how to do that. They should. They still need the practice. And it's always going to be valuable to pick up a ruler and practice it. So what they would then do is they would make their measurements and go code it into Ozoblockly, which is the program I did not show y'all Ozoblockly. So Ozoblockly is their basic program that you go into in order to Ozoblockly is their program you would go in to actually code it to where they need to go. And I'm not finding it right now, but I'll make sure that link is in there. And so Ozoblockly is where they would go to program it for this. They just updated their website too. So, and then they would have to like make adjustments because you also have the friction of the little wheels on the paper, and does it turn right? Do they have to overcompensate or undercompensate? And they have to measure the degrees. How many degrees do you want Ozobot to turn in order to get to that certain place? So this one's just a few seconds. So I'll play it for you, even though you don't have my narration, which I'm sure you're fine with, but it basically went something like, we need to go find toilet paper. So let's go. And this is after programming it in the computer, doing the loading it onto the Ozobot and making any adjustments. So he went to his first store, and they can go any order they want to. It doesn't matter. In the Ozobot lesson, you get a sample of the lesson as well. You will get a sample of how they can solve it, a potential answer key. And so Ozobot made it home. And a lot of actual work there. That would be pretty detailed work for my students. You know, doing all the conversions and measurements and stuff like that, and angle measuring, wonderful for a geometry unit. So right here is another sample of one similar to that. And this one does a little bit more of asking them, you know, how did you code this? You know, what was your thought process? So getting them to write about their math as well, and getting them to kind of communicate it a little bit more. And this one does not have a loop. You could easily put a loop in there, but I kind of made it simple for what I would see my students doing. Okay, well, I move this far, then I turn this way, I go this speed. And so they even give you a sample answer key in that lesson online. And again, I've put all this in there for y'all. It's all provided in the folder I'm going to give y'all at the end. I've gone on and on. I don't know if I've had any questions. There's a lot of information here, and I know it's a lot to process. So please reach out to me if you have any questions or need any ideas. I'm happy to share. Do I have any questions right now? I guess, Melissa, you probably would have stopped me and said, hey.
Yes, actually, I'll just maybe pop in and say through the magic of WhatsApp, I asked my colleagues, so they're running a few minutes late as well. So they said we'll go back at 5:50, which is in about 8 minutes. So that does leave us time for questions. So I really want to thank you, Lisa, for presenting this. I actually should clarify a little bit. You put me on the spot. With the Swiss curriculum, there actually is a state secretariat that oversees for all of Switzerland, and then each canton decides a bit differently on its curriculum. So maybe I'll let some of the other Swiss teachers speak to that. But I will also say this is quite interesting, and I'll open the floor for anyone that may or might have a question, and maybe just one comment. We did not have a toilet paper issue here in Switzerland. That was
it was
typically American problem during
horrible.
The pandemic, but what a creative way, because that would have spoken to your students.
And that was kind of to be tongue in cheek, because it's either laugh or cry sometimes during that period, you know. And I put it on there, and I didn't want to offend anybody, you know, so I made another one. You can make any lesson you want that's relevant to your area, your location. I do think it's important, though, that we work through it ourselves, because every Ozobot, yes, thank you. It is a lot to digest. So again, any questions? One of the things is you've got to be careful, like your Ozobot will, as they, you know, the wheels and the friction, every Ozobot is kind of different, if that makes sense. So what I've done is I've numbered all mine. So if a particular person or group has an Ozobot and they're working on an activity for a couple of days, I try and make sure they have that same one, if that makes sense. You know, kind of like my phone, even though it's a certain model, might work different than my husband's at the same model. Because of the games we play, I do try and respect that, especially with the projects or the major grades. I try and make sure they get the same Ozobot, if that makes sense. Because you will have that little bit of friction, or if you forget to erase well, you'll have that little bit of a eraser get in it. But it's just been a lot of like trial and error, and it's really hard to find high school stuff. So I tried to create stuff that we could use very justifiably. And I know I'm not using the appropriate word. I don't think so. But for those administrators that have to say, well, why are you doing this? You know, I want them to know it. Katarina, you had a question?
At first, congratulations. It was very interesting presentation, and thank you very much, because at least for me, it's a new window in the robotic world. I haven't ever used Ozobot, but I have used other robotic systems like Edison, Themio. I would like to ask, how long do you use Ozobot in your classroom?
Depending on, I probably have 4 lessons I might do. I might do a day here and there. I don't use them a ton because they are time consuming, and they are like, it's a lot of technology. It's a lot of money to have sitting out. So I try and use them like once a 9 weeks, or maybe just bring them out for play here and there. As far as like justifying cost, I have received all mine through grants, and they actually, Ozobot has a program that you can become a certified educator, and they will give you a classroom set to use, which is really neat. So I use them, like, it's really hard to find lessons. So it's really been me trying to develop lessons. Originally, I used them like 3 times a year. Last year, I used them like 5 times because we ended up doing, they had a contest for like a parade route. And it was about this elementary school book. And of course, I'm always like, give me some high school stuff, you know? And I ended up doing a high school lesson for that parade route. And my kids ended up winning the contest. So everything was so little hands-on that I finally said, I can't mentally do this anymore. I need to do something hands-on. So last year, I actually probably got them out more because my kids were so desperate to touch stuff and do stuff. And I had football player seniors on their hands and knees, gluing charms to paper to decorate their Ozobot float. And so it was, and so I always try and make it mathematical, and I might've spent 3 or 4 days on that. And a lot of it was just being creative, but the social emotional learning that goes on there is beyond what we can ever teach in a standard. And so some days I'll just throw them out. We have what's called mix it up days, and I'll just toss them out and make them do a puzzle or make them do a challenge, or just let them play because they're still doing order of operations. They're still practicing accuracy and following directions and being respectful of property. And there's a lot of life lessons there. So I try and do it once in 9 weeks. The first couple of days at the beginning of the school year. I have my quadratic project. I have a geometry, I have a couple with geometry. So it really just depends on what I can fit into my schedule and what I feel my kids need practice on that year. So it kind of changes from year to year, if that makes sense. But again, with shape tracer and stuff like that, you don't even have to have an Ozobot to start off with. And you can have 2 Ozobots and just let your kids, share in groups, or if you can write a grant. And I don't know how grant writing goes, and if we have something called Donors Choose here, and that's what has blessed me beyond belief, is being in grants to have all these robotics in my classroom. But we have, like, our school district will do special grants for stuff like this, and I think something like this where you can show 4 times a year would be awesome. And I think it's enough. I think one of the things that we struggle with as educators is if we get something new like this, we feel we have to use it for everything. And it's like, no, I can use it for 5 things, and that's okay. I can use it for 2 things, and that's okay. And that's what I'm bad about. I bite off more than I can chew. I have like 12 lessons now for Ozobot in high school because I'm always like, well, I want to do this with them, and I want to do this with them. And it's just trying to get those high school materials out there for people too. But it's at first I have to like just step back and go, it's okay to use it twice my first year. It's okay. And it's okay to build it into my next year, if that makes sense. So it's been a learning process every year. Like I said, I've been using it for about 6 years, and, have maybe 2 lessons a year I use it for every year, if that makes sense.
Okay. Sorry, can I ask another one question?
Please.
What age are your students, and how many students are in the classroom, in the course?
I have all of 9th through 12th high school students because of the nature of my math class. I have
the math class that's to beef up your algebra skills, which is our first year of high school math. So all my students are probably between 13 and 19, honestly. So probably more or less like 10th and 11th graders. So 16, 17 are what most of my students probably are. In my classrooms, I've had up to like 24 in a class, and I've had classes as small as like 8 because of scheduling conflicts. So it has not been an issue in any of those different sizes. As far as my sections go, I have been lucky enough to have an Ozobot per student though. So I am coming from a little bit of a different thing. It could easily be done with an Ozobot per 3 students. And again, I would ask my other schools, like, hey, does anybody have these sitting around that I can borrow? Because a lot of times they'll get materials like this from grants, and then they end up in a closet and they're just sitting there.
And I apologize because I do know that we're going back now to the big room. I get my little messages just so to come back and have the final sharing. But
Oh,
I
let
know
me show y'all so y'all can receive y'all's information.
Yes, I was going to say we really appreciate it, Lisa. I think
right
they're
here.
very interesting questions. And Katerina, I know we can continue the chat in the other room, but
yes,
go ahead.
Right here is let me put this in the chat for y'all really quick. Let me go put, if you're going to type this in right here, this will take you to all of the materials. So I'm gonna put this in our chat right now for y'all, and I'll put it in the chat. I will also put it in the chat in the big room for y'all, because I want to make sure y'all have that. And of course, this is recorded as well. So this will take you to all the materials, and within the PowerPoint is a way to contact me. So Katerina, if you have any other questions, if you have a lesson, you're like, can you figure something out? I have one for domain and range. The Ozobot parade became domain and range, so of a linear function. So, but there's all different levels on mine.
Thank you so much, Lisa, for presenting.
Oh.
Thank you for your questions.
Urs had a question.
Lisa, Roteco, but if we go back to the main room, we'll continue to share it again. Thank you, Lisa. I will stop.
Thank you so much.
Now. I put the link to the main room. It should be in the chat.